Yeah, so let me jump right into it. I'll start with my story. In 2007, I set up the bakery in Everest Base Camp. And the reason I did that was because 6 months before, I was climbing another mountain called Choyu in Tibet. And at that time, what I noticed was a lot of climbers were very competitive and suspicious, and they didn't like to talk to each other. And I thought, we're up in the mountains doing the most extraordinary thing in the world, yet here we are being petty. And I said, the next time I go to a mountain, I'm going to do something about this. And it was a friend of mine who said, why don't you make a bakery? That'd be really good. And so I made a bakery where people came, and they had apple pie and coffee and tea, and it was a really great place. And actually, I've even been told by many trekkers that came that it was the best apple pie they ever had in their life. But they had been walking in the mountains for 10 days, so... And it was that same year in 2007 that I got to the top of Mount Everest for the first time. And actually, it's quite an interesting story. A lot of people ask me, you know, how did you feel the first time you got to the top of Mount Everest? And, you know, it was the usual, you know, you see the top, it's 20 meters away, and I'm almost crying in my goggles. And I was thinking about my mom and my dad and all my friends and family, everybody who supported me. And so I got to the top, I pulled out my satellite phone, and I called my dad. He answered, hello. You know, and I said, Dad, I'm going back down, I can't go any higher. And he said, oh no, what happened? And I said, I'm on the top. You know what he said? Oh yeah, who else is there? But it wasn't just nice memories from Everest, actually, and that's really what I'm here to talk to you about. That year, in 2007, when I climbed Everest, I saw that there was a lot of problems on the mountain. First of all, of course, I could see a lot of garbage, but also I could see that the glaciers, the ice, and the snow was melting. And especially when I spoke to the older Sherpas who were climbing with me, how much it changed was really shocking to me. And so I wanted to do something about that. But I'm a mountaineer, I'm just one guy, what can I do? You know, I don't know much about climate change, all I know is a little bit of climbing. So I asked my good friend Appa Sherpa to join me. Now, Appa has an interesting story because in 1985 what happened was there was a lake which melted over a period of time, there was a glacier that melted into a lake, and that lake burst out, and actually all his fields and his house and his yaks were washed away. So he had nothing. So he understood about climate change, and he said, sure, I'll help you. We'll go on this together. So the next year, in 2008, we started the first Eco-Everest expedition. And we started with the garbage situation. How do we clean up Mount Everest? That's a very good question. I calculated that back in 2008, if I wanted to create a team of 30 Sherpas, 30 climbers, to go to Everest and clean, it would cost me about $250,000, $250,000. And that is not money I have in my pocket. So, bit of a problem. I want to clean, but I don't have the resources. But I've always been a believer in tapping into unused resources. And so this is where the experience from the year before helped me a lot. So when we were climbing, what we do is we don't go in one push to the top of Mount Everest, because if you do that, you'll die. It's true. Because your body does not have enough time to get used to the altitude. So what you need to do is you need to go up, and then you need to come back down. You need to go up, and you need to come down. Each time, a higher camp, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. So what I saw was that all these climbers, these Sherpas and these foreign climbers, were taking up food and fuel and tents, rope, all of that. They're going up there, they're setting up their camp, but they're coming back down empty. And I said, that's interesting. So I went to all these climbers and I said, hey, listen guys, you're coming down empty anyways, and if you see any garbage on the way, put it in your backpack, you bring it to me, I'll weigh it, and for each kilo, I'll give you $1. And as you can imagine, very quickly, people started helping out, and we had a bit of garbage collected. At the same time, I also imported some Toilet bags. People always ask me, how do you go to the toilet on Mount Everest? I think I don't want to get into that tonight. But these toilet bags are very robust bags that you can use on the mountain, and I'll leave you to your imagination about how we do that. But once you use it, you can then bring it back down. That's what they're designed for. Together with the CMC, the Clean Mountain Can, which is a bucket, which is also a toilet. So then it became everybody's personal responsibility to also bring their toilet back. Okay? And I actually had to, in some cases, write people's names on the bags, because what ended up happening was these bags were ending up everywhere. So that year, since that year in 2008 until this year in 2013, we've done it 6 years in a row. And I'm very happy to say that so far we've collected 15,000 kilos of garbage and brought all our human waste back down. Also, we started playing with new technology, and this particular picture is showing you a parabolic solar cooker. It's like a magnifying glass, except it's inverted. You put the pot in the middle, and the sun's rays bounce back, and it boils the water in the pot. This cooker could cook 9 liters of water every 35 minutes. And this is at 5,300 meters. Now, that's great, because we had so much hot water, the boys were taking showers almost every day. And I kid you not, you probably would never have seen cleaner mountaineers in your life. But more seriously, it also reduced our dependence on kerosene and gas. And now you see these parabolic solar cookers all over Nepal. And that means that it's having a great impact on reducing the use of firewood in the villages. But finally, what we're there to do, climb the mountain. When we do get to the top of the mountain, we unfurled a banner that said, "Stop climate change, let the Himalayas live." And this particular picture, I'll tell you why it's powerful, is because this is Apa Sherpa, my friend Apa. And what I didn't tell you earlier is that until 2011, when he finally retired, Apa held the world record. He had climbed Mount Everest 21 times. This was his 19th time. And every time he climbs Mount Everest, people say, "Apa, I want a photo of you on the top." And so we gave them this photo. So the whole world could see this photo of Apa on the top talking about climate change. And it was this work that got us recognized, and we were invited to come and talk in Europe. And we were we were invited to tour in 10 different cities in Europe and talk about climate change in the Himalayas, about in the mountains, how it's affecting us, and so on. But as we all know, in 2009, in Copenhagen, nothing really came of it, and we had to go home empty-handed. It was a very sad time for us. We were very disappointed, of course. But it gave me a sense that a lot more needed to be done. There's still a lot to be done. So, going back to Kathmandu, together with my good friend Prashant, who's watching this right now on the internet, hello, we started the Himalaya Climate Initiative. And the idea was that we wanted to tackle issues of climate change and other environmental issues in Nepal. So, one of the first things I wanted to do after establishing HCI was I wanted to learn to know Nepal better. Because when we were traveling in Europe, people said, "How are the people of Nepal suffering?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, because we're mountaineers. We know our story, and we know about the mountains." So I said, wouldn't it be great if we could travel all across Nepal and talk to the people? And so this idea was in our mind for quite some time, until finally we decided to do it. And last year, on January the 15th, we set off on what we now call the Great Himalaya Trail. So this is Nepal. And we walked from east to west Nepal. As much as we could, we'd stay in people's homes so that we could interact with them and know their stories. But most of the times, we would be camping under the starry night. But sometimes when the weather wasn't that great and we couldn't be in anybody's homes, we would just have to sleep in a yak shed. That was also comfortable. We would eat whatever was locally available. Like in this particular case, it was a wedding, a feast in the village. So meat was on the menu. It was a good day for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't get meat. But more importantly, we would drink whatever we could get. You have to keep your spirits up, you know. It was a tough trek. We trekked for 99 days, and finally, by the end of the trek, we had done 1,555 kilometers in the 99 days. And our GPS calculated that we had ascended a total of 86,000 meters, which is almost 10 times the height of Mount Everest. So if you ever ask me which is harder, to trek across Nepal or climb Mount Everest, it's this. Much harder. But we were still smiling. This is my friend, my photographer, Samir. We were always smiling. Because when you're in pristine natural beauty like this, of course you can't do anything else but smile. When you're walking through forests like that, and when you're always in the shadow of the most beautiful mountains in the world. But it was actually the people. They're the ones that really stick out in my mind. They're unique stories, like this jolly grandfather who would crack jokes that nobody understood. This particular man moved me a lot. I was walking with him for about half an hour until we finally sat down and had some water, and I asked him, "Where are you coming from?" He said, "The hospital." And I said, "Oh, what's happened?" He said, "Oh, my wife is in the hospital." I said, "Oh, okay. What happened?" He said, "Oh, yeah, she got sick, and I had to carry her all the way to the hospital." I said, "How far do you live?" 3 days away. He carried his wife 3 days to the hospital. Now, if you don't believe in true love, now you do. But also, you have people living out there like they did, like their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. And you see smiles every day of the people, no matter how hard their lives are. Like this girl who's just coming back from the fields, after a hard day of work. And sometimes something unexpected, like a baby riding a horse, just catches you completely off guard. So beautiful memories. But at the same time, as we're walking along, the reality was there. We saw landslides, floods, forest fires because of the droughts. And even in some cases, we had such bad windstorms that the roofs of the house were blown out. And this was this very same day we got there. This is my village in the shadow of Everest, in the Khumbu. But most alarmingly, no matter where we went in Nepal, people were always talking about the same thing. The changing temperatures, the changing climate is having a direct impact on their agriculture. They're seeing pests that they never saw before. They're seeing diseases that they never saw before. And also the extreme weather is destroying their crops. So that was a very, very sober message that we got from them. And we put this all into a report. And in the more interesting places, more interesting I should say, the more critical places, we even sent groups of researchers to 20 different villages who then did later studies. And this has been now handed over to the government of Nepal. But from all of these places, we got to know people. We got to know the local leaders who actually know about the issues. And so, coming back to Kathmandu, we've set up the Climate Alliance of Himalayan Communities. Currently, we have 17 different local leaders who are part of this. And this is a forum where they can come together, talk about their issues, learn about how they're adapting to the different situations, and also, in one voice, talk to the government about the issues in the Himalayas. When we were walking, we saw that the villages that had electricity and mobile phone connections were the most resilient. They had other economies, not just agriculture, like tourism, for example. So I am firmly in the belief that development is the answer to climate change, at least for Nepal. So by 2020, I want to bring electricity and telecommunication to at least 200 of these villages. So that's my future plan. Okay, but that's far away. Now closer to home, we've also started on a project to ban plastic bags in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And we've started this program under the guise of Hamri Bahini, which means our little sisters. As you can imagine, Kathmandu is a pretty polluted city. And so it does take dramatic action to change things. But all big projects start with small steps, I believe. So on this project, we're working with vulnerable women, particularly women who had been trafficked into prostitution in India, who are now back in Nepal, and who are working with the stigma that is there in society for these women. These women make cloth bags, which we then take to the supermarkets, and the volunteers that work for us encourage the shoppers to take these bags. And also we have a contract with the supermarkets that for every person that takes a plastic bag, 2 rupees, which would be about, I suppose, 2 euro cent, is charged to them, which goes back to paying these women. Now, this means that we're trying to solve 2 problems with one, well, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but I don't want to kill, I'm a Buddhist. We're trying to give women a dignified employment, while at the same time also trying to solve an environmental issue. And this project has been running for 1 year now, and we've sold over 70,000 bags, and we employ 103 women. On the basis of that success, we've also managed to garner some support for solving the plastic bottle issue in Kathmandu. And that project has just launched, but we will talk about that another time because I have nothing to say right now about that. But in the meantime, next year, in 2014, I will continue to go to Mount Everest. I'll continue to clean. And using the same ideas I learned there, I'll be going to another peak called Mount Manaslu in the west of Nepal. And then finally, to finish the year next year, I'll be going to Mount Amadablam also to clean. So let me just sign off now, finally, by a thought. I hope you agree with me. The world is full of problems. Yeah? I mean, in Nepal, I see it every day, and I'm sure you see it in Greece too. The world is full of problems, but I think we should perceive it in a different way. I believe that problems are just opportunities for us to change the world. That's what I believe. And those are the sort of uncharted waters that excite me. Thank you.